Shalom, everyone. Today we're going to do a special update. Many of you have been to Israel with God's Learning Channel. Many of you have had opportunity to be around the Barak Brigade. And today we have a special guest, and Gilla is going to introduce him. He is from the Barak Brigade, and he's going to bring us up to date on what has happened since October 7th, where we are today, and what some of the needs are. Gilla?
Well, it's a great honor to introduce. I'm saying captain again. You're not a captain, Roy, are you?
Major.
Major. Sorry. Yeah, I always bring him down in rank. Major Roy Shaposhnik, who served in the Barak Brigade. He served in 2 battalions. But on October 7th, like so many people in Israel, just showed up once the Hamas attack started in the south. He showed up for reserves and has been recruited ever since. I mean, that's like a year and 3 months already.
426 days.
426 days. Now you have to understand that Roy has a high-tech company that he manages. That's in his regular civilian life. He has a family with a wife and 4 boys. I didn't ask the ages, but how old is the oldest?
17. He's going to get recruited in a year from now.
Wow. Okay. And the youngest?
7.
Okay, so you see, wonderful. So you see, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the guy's 44 years old, in the middle of life, in the middle of his career, just puts on a uniform, takes his weapon, and shows up at the base in the north or in the south, wherever you were supposed to be. And ever since then, has been serving as a deputy battalion commander. So, Roy, we are really honored to have you here to show our wonderful viewers on GLC and to tell them about what's going on in Israel and, get the real story.
Shalom, everybody. First of all, for me, it's a great pleasure to be on board. Thank you very much for having me. As you mentioned, I'm being in the reserve for 425 days in a row since October 7 at 8:30 in the morning. Ever since then, as a part of my job, I am responsible for supporting the 188th Armored Brigade, the Barak, and giving them all the relevant support from, let's call it, from the civilian side, in order to make sure that the troops, the commanders, the units, the tanks are fully on track, has all the relevant gear, all the elements that needs to support them, from a very personal elements such as underwear, and goes all the way up to personal gear, and that's a part of what we are doing.
Roy, can you tell us Barak's part in October 7th?
Yes, absolutely. So I think in order to explain it, we all need to understand that in October 7th, which was a part of Sukkot holiday, the brigade itself was on holiday. I know it's going to sound weird, but nobody really expected to have any kind of a war on October 7th. The funny part, I don't know if funny is the right word, on the 6th of October, we mentioned 50 years for Yom Kippur War, right, which was a very heroic war for the Barak Brigade. And our commander of the brigade mentioned that in a ceremony together with all the veterans of the Yom Kippur War. During that ceremony, everybody went out to their houses for holidays, but we did had 3 battalions that were spread around Israel. 53rd Battalion was up in the center of Israel in Judea and Samaria. 71st Battalion was up in the north, and then 74 Battalion was actually not so far from Jenin, but from the Israeli side. At 6:29 in the morning, when the first attack and missiles started, we all noticed that something weird is coming up. At 6:45, our logistic officer, a young lady, Major Ronnie, called the brigade commander and told him, "Sir, there is something weird." He opened the news, and immediately on the WhatsApp group to the entire headquarters, he said, "Yom Kippur is here. All in, Hamas is attacking." And in less than 1 hour, the entire brigade moved from a non-attack, home-based into a fully military combat mode, and the troops moved from the center of Israel straight to the south into a military base called Tzelim, where we had tanks of the 53rd Battalion waited there to be a part of a military practice drill in the following months. Nobody really expected that we will use it for a war. The first soldiers arrived around 10 o'clock in the morning and started to gear up the tanks. It's a process that takes between 4 to 5 hours. And at 12:30, the late 53rd Battalion Salman Khapka recruited his team and said, "Guys, let's drive." At 1 o'clock, 3 tanks, the first tanks, left Tzelim based and drove all the way to Be'eri Kibbutz, to Kibbutz Be'eri. And we were actually the first tanks to arrive to the Gaza Strip specifically and to Be'eri. Afterwards, we have managed to release 7 more tanks and actually send them to the south part of Gaza Strip. And by doing that, we've saved literally hundreds and thousands of people's life by being there as the tanks arriving on board, arriving on site, and eliminating the terrorists that managed to break through the fence and actually bringing back, let's call it more aggressive by using the tanks, firing the shells. We've managed to change a little bit the entire process until we reach to a complete control and to a complete focus on the situation.
That's amazing. I mean, literally, what you're saying is that.
Joe,
Oh, go
Joe,
ahead.
can I interfere for just 1 second? You know, you remember, you and I were present at the ceremony of the rolling of the Merkava Mark IV.
Yes.
And a stupid journalist came to Talik, to the late Talik, right, Israel Tal, and asked him, "Do you think that we need tanks like that?" And you know what Talik's answer was? "Where do you get these stupid questions?"
Yes. Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
I remember very well.
So that's why we need the tanks.
Right.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
What I was going to say is that what you're telling us is that this, you're recounting the arrival of the first tanks, and it was from this particular brigade. And I mean, thank God that y'all were there. Thank God that that the commander had the wisdom to not wait for to be told. He sent the men, and they got everything going because of the countless ones that that you just related that they saved. It could have been a much worse story
True.
and not acted so quickly. And Barak means lightning, and you reacted like lightning. And
True. True. I have to fully agree with you. I think our brigade commander, Orv Volozhinsky,
Okay.
got a very, very, um, how should I say it in a modest way? His decision to send the troops without waiting for any further order is one of the most brave action that he has made. I think I can't even imagine what would be the results if we wouldn't do it. I mean, we know that the casualties in life on the 7th of October were almost 800 soldiers and 700 civilians. I can only imagine that the numbers would be significantly higher if we wasn't there as tanks on site.
can you give us an update on the status of Gaza and also of Lebanon with
Yes.
Hezbollah?
So first of all, our 71st Battalion is right now, as we speak, in Jabalia, in Gaza Strip. They are securing the humanitarian convoy that are entering every morning and every afternoon, an average of 120 trucks that are coming from Jordan and from Israel in order to provide humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza. I have to tell you that it's not an easy assignment. The reason I'm saying it because there is plenty of terrorists that are trying to sneak in between the trucks, trying to smuggle and to steal the things that are getting there. The chaos from Hamas side is huge, and we are trying to make sure that this humanitarian aid is actually getting to the right hands at the end of the day.
Very good.
Regarding Lebanon, I'm proud to tell you that the 53rd Battalion, that we just spoke about it earlier, left Lebanon actually 11 hours ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were the last tanks battalion of the 188 Brigade that was still in Lebanon. And right now, we are actually in a defense mode, meaning that the tanks are on the border, searching all the time to identify if there is any kind of suspicious behavior or movement. And by searching that, actually, they are literally protecting the border because the border itself is torn apart. So they are a physical human border by our tanks and our troops. The rest of the brigades are doing the same thing in other area, um, in the Golan Heights. 74 Battalion is watching that front with Syria,
Syria, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
and that's about it. And of course, our Engineering Corps 605, which is a brilliant battalion that is doing really. I don't think we have enough time that I can tell you what they are doing and the amount of things that they found in Gaza in terms of tunnels and other stories. I think it's something that it's worth to have a separate conversation. They are also protecting in the north side of Israel. So we are physically in the north and also in the south.
Do you believe that the conflict with Hezbollah is over?
Yes, personally, but that's my personal believing only. Personally, I believe it is. I think that Israel has managed to hit them in a very strong way, that we've managed to cut the connection between the leadership and, how should I say it, the people on the ground. Joe, I have to tell you that when we entered Lebanon, the first 2 kilometers, we didn't saw any enemy. They literally ran away. The reason they ran away was because they saw what happened to their leadership and they got scared. And we were very fortunate to identify a lot of tunnels, a lot of, we call it safe zones, that they've managed to store weapon, ammunition, trucks, motorcycles, and they were ready to hit us. They were ready. And I think the fact that we were there was actually a good success, because we went and eliminated all of that weapon and ammunition. Most of it, by the way, we pulled it out from Lebanon and it's in Israel right now. The reason we did it, because to investigate and to understand. Um, but I think Hezbollah right now is in aftershock mode, and it will take him time to rebuild itself. However, I will pray that the new leadership in the United States and the leadership in Israel will work strongly to make sure that Hezbollah is not getting back the same things that he just lost in the last couple of months.
We've all been watching what's happening in Syria. You mentioned, I believe, the 74th Battalion
74, yeah,
is on the defense against the Syrian front.
correct.
Is there a expectation that that's going to expand into conflict with Israel?
There is an expectation to that. Yes, if it will happen in the next couple of days, weeks, I am personally very doubted, and the reason is the weather. Winter is here; it's extremely cold, and I don't think that they will do any kind of a heavy military activity. However, having said that, we are on high alert.
Yes.
We are using a lot of technology and a lot of machineries in order to make sure that the enemy sees that we are there, and we are trying to make sure that they know that we will hit them very strong if they will try to attempt anything.
Gila, I'm sure you have some things that you want to ask. Let me turn it over to you for. Wow.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I wanted to say, I mean, from my part as a total civilian. By the way, you know, we were connected. We worked with the Barak Brigade for many years. I think for 20 years.
Yeah.
Until maybe I don't know, 2010, maybe, yeah, about 2010, even 2015. And since then, I've been following from a distance. But the minute the war broke out, I started getting calls from old friends. And you know, what happened is, it sounds crazy, but when the call came for the reserves to be recruited, they say that 150% of the people showed up. Now, how can that be? Because we had 20 quiet years. You know, like in the Bible, it says 40 quiet years, right? The land was quiet for 40 years after Deborah's battle. But for us, it's today everything goes faster, so it's 20 years. We've had relatively quiet 20 years. You have had some incursion, you had some operations into Gaza, but by and large, things were calm. So the commander decided to make a small army, and a lot of people were let go from reserves, even though they were only 35, 36 years old. And many showed up, and even the ones that used to show up for the regular training and for the regular maneuvers were a fairly small number, and nobody insisted on having more people. And now everybody showed up, plus people who had been released from duty. And everything was so sudden that the military found itself with not enough equipment. I mean, people didn't have personal equipment like vests, like helmets, like even socks and underwear. And of course, my go-to is Joe with Hatikva Ministries, and then to GLC, and people were just fantastic. And we did all we could. Then things subsided, and it seemed like the army was supplying enough and had enough to supply. The Israeli army focuses on getting weapons, and that's the main part the money is spent on. Then there's not always enough left for the personal needs of all the soldiers. So then when the Lebanon incursion started, when the real big Lebanon started, Offer Safrir and Roy started calling all around, and they called me as well. So this is where we are. This is where we are, and there's some really essential equipment that especially the reservists. The regular army is much better equipped. They have a lot more. The reservists, there's just not enough equipment to go around, and they really need it. It saves lives. So that's where we're at. That's why I'm meeting today, and then that's what we're trying to ask for your kind help to help us with.
What are some of the needs that are there that we could address?
Well, right now, what we need really urgently are bulletproof vests and tactical helmets that are both very well protected and are light, relatively light. Nothing is light in these things to wear. And they honestly make it possible for the soldiers to move, and they protect them as much as possible. But Roy, you could probably elaborate on that.
So yes, thank you, Gilla. First of all, I have to tell you one important thing. The majority of the equipment for, let's call it the soldiers that are serving in the army, they have a full gear. The regular. Thank you. They have a full gear, and the army is doing a great job. As Gilla mentioned, the reserve is even more than 150%, and I will explain. I found together with me people that already after the retirement age of being in the reserve that are actually on board and coming and recruiting and helping. And the rounds that we are doing in terms of the days that we are in the army, it's even more than 200 days. I mean, personally, I'm 425, but friends of mine are doing rounds in the platoons. We are short today with high quality of equipment. Yes, we have bulletproof vests, but those are very old bulletproof vests who doesn't fit to the right and current threats that the enemy has upon us. Those bulletproof vests were extremely good and relevant in Yom Kippur War and Vietnam War. In a matter of fact, those were equipment that we got from United States after Vietnam War.
Wow.
Now you can imagine yourself to run and to work with a bulletproof vest that doesn't has the capability to hold a 9mm or 7.62. It's something that, I mean, it's like walking without bulletproof vest. That's why we are trying to find an immediate solution for that, for helmets, winter equipment, which we are providing them as we speak right now. But I think if we can have a support in that area, that will be priceless. We have the suppliers in Israel. Manufacture capabilities in Israel is being increased to 3 shifts, 7 days a week, even Shabbat on Saturday. We got the approval to do it, and we just need assistance to make sure that we are able to purchase it and to hand it over immediately to the people, to the soldiers out on the field.
And let me just add one thing. The immediate instinct of people is, can we buy them in the States and send them? Well, that's not possible.
No.
Not anymore.
Because-
That's it.
Right, because the vests and the helmets have to fit the standards, the very strict standards
Right.
that the IDF imposes, and rightly so, you know, because some of the vests, with all the goodwill of people, they turn out to not fit and to be faulty, and they have to be responsible. They have to approve every single piece of equipment, and that's the ones that are manufactured right now in Israel.
Now,
So,
Gilla sent to me a couple weeks ago when the boys were in Lebanon at that time, and this was the need for the Barak Brigade, that they needed 30 more vests and helmets. Now she sent me, we sent over I think $3,000 or $4,000 within a
Right.
couple of days, but each of these vests they run $800 each,
right.
Correct.
and the helmets are $390. So that's basically $1,200 per soldier. And it's also, you've got 30 soldiers there in the Barak Brigade that need these things. That's 30 soldiers that are not protected. As you mentioned, wearing 50-year-old equipment and fighting against 2024, 2025 ammunition, and it doesn't work. And so this is a place that you know we can help, and I hope a lot of people will respond. And there is JerusalemTempleStudy.com, the David Fund. All this money, every bit of it, goes to the Army. Okay. There is a scan, a little barcode that you can scan if you'd like to donate. It's tax exempt, and but I'd love to see that. Number one, we're able to raise this money for this immediate need. I'd like to see number two, that we keep track with you and can provide future needs. And number three is that we can do some more updates where you can tell us many of these stories that everybody would, you know, people want to stand with Israel that are in this viewing audience. And this is a way that you can do that. So any closing remarks, and we'll go ahead and finish for this session.
Roy?
From my side, I just want to say once again, thank you so much. I have to tell you from a personal note, having you guys supporting us is a great honor and privilege. Knowing that you are backing us up is giving us a lot of strength and support. And I want to say in Hebrew, Toda Rabba. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you all in Israel, in the Barak Brigade camp in Aleka, in Ramat Golan, in the Golan Mountains, and to host you over there. And I know Joe drove a tank Merkava Mark III, and maybe we can give you a ride on Merkava Mark IV.
Wow, Joe.
That will be a great, great honor. And once again, thank you. I really appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you. And thank you to the viewers of GLC. You are so
Very much.
precious. Thank you.
All right. Shalom, everyone. And we'll look forward to your contribution, and we'll look forward to the next update.